When you think grumpy sunshine, you expect bickering, teasing, tension and banter. But Yotha Gun, they gave us this and more. Hi friends, today it's all about Yotha and Gun from Perfect 10 Liners, obviously playing by the amazing Perth and Santa. So this video is all gonna be all about them, about their storyline in Perfect 10 Liners. I'm so excited. And also today I have a little assistant with me, and it's the little Perth Santa fandom doll, and they're called Domia. I just got them recently, finally, after I'm waiting for so many months, and they're just gonna be in the background watching and supporting. Yes, I'm so excited to get into the video and just share the Yotha Gun goodness and healing and tension and amazing chemistry with y'all. Yes? Okay, let's start with a little introduction. If you don't know who Yotha and Gun are, they're two characters in the Thai Perfect 10 Liners, which is a show of 24 episodes with 3 main couples and like 2 to 3 side couples. And so it starts with a different couple, but they're all like connected by several things, by friendship and family relations and things like that. And so we're gonna talk today about Yotha and Gun, which are the second main couple to happen basically in the show. And yeah, it goes from episode 9 until episode like 16 is like their main storyline, basically. And yeah, so Yotha and Gun are both like freshmen in university. They're like in their first year, they're moving into the like dorms from the university. And in the beginning, Yotha rooms with his brother Pfeiffer, and Gun rooms with his friend Kong, I think is his name. But the problem is that Gun cannot sleep without all the lights, and not even just like that there's a little light, but it has to be a lot of lights. And so his friend doesn't do well with that. So Pfeiffer suggests that they switch because Yotha doesn't really mind, apparently, that's what he says. And then he also is not there a lot. Also, Yotha goes often to this bar that Pfeiffer and Yotha's older brother owns, and so he comes back really late. And so Pfeiffer's like, this is the best thing ever, yeah, we're gonna do this basically. Right, we're gonna switch rooms, you're gonna sleep as in the beginning also in the bed of Yotha and things like that. And so they become roommates because they were roommates, okay? And so that's how the love story starts. So this is a little summary for the Yotha Gun storyline. Is definitely the trope grumpy sunshine, because we have Yotha, who is very, he's quite cynical, you might even say, a little broody, definitely also sometimes grumpy. And then we've got like Gun's like really like gentleness, but also like infectious enthusiasm and happiness. Even though, of course, as we all know in this trope and in general, he does have some depth to him, he does have some trauma to him, but like especially in general, like I think his personality is just a very happy and enthusiastic and content person who tries to spread joy. And so I feel like that's so grumpy sunshine dynamic. Then they're like also kind of brought together by some funny circumstances, because Yotha is not 100% on board with the room switch, but his people-pleasing brother Pfeiffer is like, I want to help my friends and no one else wants to switch, and so you're gonna switch, which in the end obviously works out well for Yotha. And I feel like it's not too cliche, and it feels still kind of fresh personally, because even though it has a lot of like the good grumpy sunshine element, both of them have like traumas on very different levels, basically, that they're also kind of like healing with each other by being with each other, by also just supporting each other, right? And so that's why I think it's a really cute storyline, that in general the way that they just develop this kind of like friendship, companionship, and then it turns romantic. I really enjoyed that. That was so cute. And especially in the beginning, you can really see like Yotha is like a very, has been very hurt by the world, by people that he was very close to. And so he's a very closed off person. And maybe even slightly introverted in some sense, basically. But then obviously not only has he changed rooms and does not room with his brother anymore, but he is also part of one of the close-knit, nosy, but enthusiastically cute groups, perfect 10-liners. And so it's just the cutest thing that they just really try to be there for him. And then of course Ark and Arm are like also like they're the couple before them, and Arm is just such a cutie. It's just, he really is. And so that's why he just gets sucked into this. And so, which maybe Arkanama also maybe a little bit grumpy sunshine on some levels, but I feel like Yotha Gun, it just fits perfectly, like the description 100%. Yeah, so there's so many ways in which this like dynamic happens, obviously. As we know, then he doesn't really talk to a lot of people, but it's kind of cute once they become like roommates as well. Like they become quite like close. And then there's this scene where there's university related activities, and like Yotha really tries to escape them. So he like flees basically to the bathroom, and Gun finds him there, which is also where their first encounter was, but Gun didn't know that immediately the first time because he was full of water and he couldn't see anything. But yeah, so and that's when he like Yotha says this like a line where he basically goes, oh yeah, like I'm trying to hide from people, and then Gun is like, oh, do you want me to leave? And I'm like, no, you're an exception, which is where it already starts. It already got me in the feels the first time that happened. Like I've watched this show too many times already. They only ended a few months ago, but anyway. And so obviously we know that Gun, even he is the sunshine, even some people in the show call him the sunshine of the world. Obviously there's also some smaller things, or like some things that he is insecure about. And there's of course his trauma with being locked in the shed and like being scared of the dark and not being able to sleep without any lights on or without a lot of lights on. Right? And so that's why those two just like really help each other. And that's like the cutest thing ever. And then also it's like this, they just match each other's energy, though sometimes really well. And then there's this really sad scene where Yotha comes back and he was beaten up because of things that, we find out later, that he's like gotten into like bad habits basically. And then he like just lies down in the bed and he's like like he's hurting. And it's probably also hurting to lie down unmedicated and untreated. And then like Gun looks after him and Yotha says these heartbreaking things. But yeah, so I just really love the dynamic that this trope brings to them. And obviously Perth Santa did that amazingly as well. It just really translated it so well on screen. From the very first time they meet on screen, there's just like this natural tension. The eye contact is so good. Both of them have such emotive faces. Both of them really like already send so much like out with like their eyes, with their facial expressions, with their body language. And the way that they meet, I think, is that they like both Kong and Gun are on the wrong floor, and then they open the door, and it's a hilarious situation. And then obviously once they become roommates, they are much closer. They're like in constant proximity to each other, and especially Yotha, which I think is also a bit of an acting choice by Perth, because he did this in 2 other shows at least I watched with him. He like is someone who then if the character permits that, definitely, but often he plays characters who also like, they like really come close, like they come really close to the other person. And so in the beginning, I feel like he's just doing it to annoy Gun, but at some point, both he and Gun are developing some feelings, there's some attraction, some tension. And so it becomes really interesting when they're like a really compact like space. And of course, the first scene where they move in together, when Gun knocks on the door with his things and Yotha opens and he's shirtless, and like the immediate, like he, like Gun is there with his sunshine, he smiles, and Yotha is like this, but he's like shirtless, and it's like hilarious as well. Then one of my favorite scenes is actually the scene where they talk about their traumas and that they want to help each other solve their traumas, and it's like a bet that they make. And then, but then also Yotha says, yeah, but then he needs to take responsibility for my feelings. And then Yotha kisses Gun, and Gun is kind of overwhelmed. And that's one of like the scenes where you can just really see that they are such good actors. Also, people correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but if I remember correctly, that during the shooting, they actually shot something else first, because in the first part, it doesn't start obviously with like everyone like not being together. It actually starts with most of them being together and Ark and Arm telling their story, which means that Yotha and Gun are also already together. So in like at least 2 or more episodes, we like see them when they're already established couple in the storyline, which means that they also kiss, which is very interesting because Perth Santa did know each other, but they had never played a couple before, and they never really played on screen with each other in that sense. Because, you know, as they've been in Wabi Sabi together, that was not really like the vibe, basically. And so they're so good. They already had this immediate natural tension, connection, and chemistry, because it was just like when I watched the first few episodes, Perfect 10-liners, and it was literally also just them, like only having like 3 minutes of screen time and already blowing my mind. So yes, and then the micro expressions also when Gun is then really hurt, when Yotha is like, I'm not really sure about my feelings, I don't want to hurt you the way that Wa really like hurt me by saying maybe I wasn't in love with you after all and all these things. But then obviously still Gun is still hurt a little bit by that. But yeah, especially when they're at the beach, but also later before everything becomes like, you know, solved and resolved. That it's just like Santa is such a good actor, like the way he cries and the way that he looks then apathetic and sad and all the things. It's just, yes, amazing. Overall amazing. So I'm so excited to see more of them. Also they started showing Me and Peace and the Pun Per Win show, so we're gonna see a little bit of Santa, because we know that they're gonna be in a few episodes, because they're like I think they're like a side couple or like a guest couple or something like that. So I'm excited for that as well. Okay, so another important part of the Yotha Gun storyline / romance is the tying of the tie. Because it is for both of them really important. Like it's firstly a way for also Gun to connect with Yotha, who's in the beginning especially quite grumpy, introverted and closed off. And then, of course, also for Yotha, it becomes this thing to also connect with Gun, who he then often like also feels like, and especially in the beginning, I feel like he doesn't know how to connect with Gun, because Gun is this very open, extroverted, and seemingly very happy and content person, with also a pretty happy family. And so for like, yeah, also some of the things that they are talking about also later, I feel like sometimes he feels a little like alienated, basically. And so it becomes for both of them a means of connection, of establishing companionship, friendship, and later also intimacy, but also for Yotha to connect with Gun when like he's not sure how to approach him after he basically did some not so great things, right? I mean, he has to apologize, but he doesn't know how, because that's not really something that he learned, which yes, to properly apologize and to properly hold yourself accountable, you kind of have to learn for yourself / try and establish that within yourself, which I feel like no one ever talks about that. And then there's of course the tie, very significant because it's only for a limited amount of time that both of them are like have to adhere to this dress code, which apparently in a lot of Thai universities, as in shown in Thai BLs, is always that in your first year, for either the whole first year or for like a part of the first year, you have to wear like this uniform basically, which is for the men, a white shirt, a tie, and like dress / suit pants and like fancy shoes basically. And which I get that that's the dress code. I still find that funny that as in university, but you know, everyone does it different. I went to British boarding school, so I also had to wear like a uniform for most of the week, basically, for like 6 to 6.5 basically days sometimes. And yes, anyway, and so that's also really important because it's only a limited amount of time in which they are doing this, which because then they're switching to the engineering jacket, which means people can wear more casual clothing. They're wearing the engineering jackets, which means there's no ties anymore, which means there's also no having to tie the tie for the other one, right? And especially Yotha starts to also seek out Gun, and it becomes their like ritual before like either university starts or when they're already university, where Yotha basically seeks out Gun and is like, can you tie my tie? And at some point they even do it literally in front of most of their peers who are studying with them at the university, who are also studying engineering. And yes, their friends are teasing them a little bit, and by that point I feel like both of them already have developed quite some feelings, and there have definitely also been some kisses. But yeah, still, it's a very interesting way that they're connecting with each other. And it also stays a very important thing. And even after all the turmoil, after all the things they went through, after they established their relationship, the tie stays an important factor because while they're not together yet, Gun gives Yotha for his birthday a tie, like a, you know, looks like the university tie, and it has his like birth date on it, which his birth date apparently is not that important because basically he and Pfeiffer, even though they're not twins in the series, I don't know how it's in the book, but in the series they're not twins. They're not even Irish twins. They're like technically, it's just like a funnily like related brothers basically, that they're like so close to born to each other basically. And so they always celebrate the like Yotha's birthday on Pfeiffer's birthday, which again, not a great mom is added again. And so that's why I think it's like very significant again, the tie for Yotha, because again, Gun shows that he really cares and loves Yotha through that. And then Yotha gives that back by giving him the same tie with Gun's birthday on it, and it's like the cutest thing ever. And so that's why that is a very important symbol, but also a means of connection for them to like really foster their romance and their connection and their relationship. And yeah, so I feel like that was so very important to talk about. And yeah, and so they have this whole like storyline obviously in perfect 10-liners, but basically from the moment that Yotha says, I want to help you not be afraid of the Gun, and Gun says, I want to help you be able to love again. It's like they really are being vulnerable with each other before even anything like greatly happened. And I think that's just like really nice and like so amazing, because they didn't even know if this was going to be a romance yet, if they're going to end up together and all of that. And so I feel like both of them had like also like obviously some things that they wanted to hide first. Like it had like, for example, Yotha had all these walls built up and being like, yeah, I need to take care of myself, even if I'm kind of injured or if I'm sick. You know, and I can't really show people the real me, because in the past, like with my parents' divorce and with my ex-boyfriend, this really just did not work out well. And in Gun, he wants to be, and he is, but also sometimes isn't, like, but he wants to be this like really like 100% positive, happy person. And obviously there's this little bit of him which is still traumatized, can't sleep with the lights on, gets nightmares and all of that. And so I feel like both of them just really supporting each other, even when they're not on speaking terms, even if they're not doing really well. Like, they're most of the time, they still support each other. And obviously also the friends from like Gun plus Pfeiffer, like they really supported him through like also some of the things that happened. And I love that also Yotha then not just tries to overcome his trauma, but also tries to work on himself, self-reflect, and stop hurting himself and others, you know, because he wants to punish himself for something. And so that's why I think like both of them are like really amazing in their own way, and then together it's like a really beautiful relationship actually, which again, that's why I also love about Perfect 10 Liners, because then there's the third couple, right, Pfeiffer and Wyan, and because then Yotha is technically the peer mentee, now the peer mentor, and Wyan is the peer mentee, so that's the way it is. They are obviously again like it's been like closer, and that's why we see still a lot of the Yotha Gun storyline as it develops, and then they move in together in like a proper place, not just a university dorm, and it's just like a really like a beautiful way that they are like soften each other, they like vulnerable with each other, they heal each other, but they also support each other in the individual healing. So it's not just like magically because they love each other, it's also because they feel loved and ready and secure to like also confront that part of themselves basically, and why this happened, for example, with Yotha with the mom, which was horrible. I hate that woman. Why that made no sense. I'm sorry, I have to go on a small rant here, don't know if I will leave this in, but anyway, the rant is about the mom of Yotha, Newton and Pfeiffer, because she is not a good person. She is just not. Because yes, divorces are hard and you don't have to stay if you don't want to stay. But I always say this, firstly, it doesn't seem like she actually wanted children. I'm feeling. Second, she literally always forgets Pfeiffer. She doesn't know that he is allergic to cow's milk, and then he doesn't eat certain things. And then nobody tells him that the mom is arriving at a different day or different days or like hours later, and he's like at the airport, and then she took Pfeiffer with her. Like, she ripped him out of his environment from his brothers, who he was really close with, same with his dad, to her new family, so that she would have more reason to visit her like first family, basically her other children, which made no sense whatsoever. Okay, because if you're a good person and you love your children, there should be no reason to like want to visit. You just want to visit them because you miss them. If you don't, like, that's your problem, but then don't drag young children into this who probably didn't even understand properly. And then he came back, and then it was a disconnect, and Yotha obviously had also experienced the whole thing with Wah, and like Newton then felt generally, I think, like guilty, which is a different story, and there's a lot of fan theories about him as well, because we didn't see a lot of him that much, like as we did obviously with Yotha and Pfeiffer. And I feel also that part also was healed in first, because he and Pfeiffer confronted the family, the mom, they talked about it with each other, with their boyfriends, with their friends. But also second, that both Pfeiffer and Yotha then had the support of their boyfriends, and in all, especially Yotha, you can see that he just really blooms, he really blossoms when he meets the lovely parents and the lovely family that Gun has, which I'm so glad, because the mom and dad are... Oopsie. Okay, I didn't mean to do that. The mom and the dad are like really lovely people. Like, they're so lovely and they're so accommodating, and he feels really safe, so that he wears the pajama that Arm got him. That Arm got him with the little, like the yellow one with a little animal print, and he does not wear this normally outside of like the dorm. And in the beginning, like, even Gun made a little bit of fun of him, and Yotha was like, I don't know if I like this, but then he wears it at the family's home. A lot of cut here, but anyway. And then they have this really, really, really lovely like film evening, and And then also the way that they like the thing with the food, the mom is like a really good cook, and then before they leave, the mom also hugs Yotha, and it's just so like, it literally is so healing for him on like an individual level, which has obviously something to do with Gun because it's like his parents. Was ist denn heute los? But it's also about that he feels like finally like accepted and secure and happy and loved. And again, I'm so annoyed with the mom from Yotha Van Newton, because she is not a good person. Okay, she needs to go to therapy and she needs to self-reflect, which she did not. And she tore up that family and like traumatized their children. Anyway, this is not what this video is about. It's literally, though, like the way that Yotha and Gun also then just like support each other, it's like not just about romance and like supporting your romantic partner, it's also about just the vulnerability and companionship that had already built before they became romantically attracted / interlinked with each other. And even though, especially in Perfect 10 Liners, but in general, also last year and this year, why for me, this love story of Yotha Gun stands out is firstly, obviously, because of the performance of everyone in Perfect 10 Liners, including, of course, Perth Santa, who played Yotha and Gun, which again, this was their first show together in which they actually interacted, were a couple, had to kiss and all of that. But obviously I was a fan from the first hour because I saw something great coming and I was right. So if you want to know more about that, I made a whole video about Perth Santa, okay? Anyway, and so it's just really like, it's just really so emotional. There's like accountability, maturity, like growth, healing, such intimate moments, such real moments, vulnerable moments. Yes, obviously, if these were real people, they would need a boatload of therapy. And I don't know if it is 100% good that they're together, because there are some things which in real life you would have to talk through. Again, preferably in therapy, maybe even some, relationship therapy. But this is a show, especially with such limited time frames. And so I feel like they did the best that they could in the show. But especially Perth Santa did such an outstanding job. I really do want to read the books, or like the book that Perfect 10 Liners is based on, especially, of course, also the Yotha Gun storyline, to understand some nuance, I think, more. But in general, I think they just did it so well, and that's why this story stood out to me among all the other stories which happened also in Perfect 10 Liners, which of course were supported also by these stories. But yeah, like Perth Santa just they just dove right in. They had this amazing instant natural chemistry, and Yotha Gun obviously had this chemistry and these emotive tastes and the amazing like scenes and kisses, and the intimate scenes were like obviously GMMTV, but this was Boss Noel, but you never know, might get that at some point. But yeah, it is just so amazing. And it would you could just really feel the emotions coming of the characters through the screen to you. You could really feel it and like really feel with the characters, like happy, sad, heartbroken, whatever. And especially one of the most like scenes where I also cried were obviously the Yotha Gun conversation at the beach, which again I also made a video about that, about beach episodes, which Yotha and Gun are also in that one. But yeah, it just stands out in so many ways. And yeah, I just also love that we could see them develop further from the initial getting together. And then, like I said, in the end, when they're living together and they're basically saying that they're gonna marry each other, and like the way that they also behaved then with Wa and his boyfriend, which I forgot his name now. Our Boom again, just also amazing. And so I just love those last few episodes of the show really showed the healing arc that both Yotha and Gun went through, the development, the maturing, and also the development of their relationship. And so we got so many great moments in after the initial like main storyline, and so I'm happy about that. Thank you for hanging out with me in my dreamy fangirl case corner. Yeah, comment your favorite Yotha Gun perfect 10-liner moments. What did you think about Yotha Gun, about their storyline, about their journey? Yeah, I'm excited to know. Yeah, you know where the subscribe button lives. I will see you in the next video. Bye!